Welcome to the Intentionists podcast, where we explore the interplay between intuition, spiritual health, and everything in between. I'm your host, Amy Schreiber.
And I'm Hillary Zwallen. Our intention is to create a dialogue that inspires you to consciously forge your path with curiosity and compassion for life and its mysteries. Hello, fellow Intentionists. Today we have a very special episode, and what makes it so special is that my co-host Amy did her very first Facebook Live event called Cultivating Wonder, Soap Bubbles, and Other Inglorious Oracles. And this is a big deal because if you know Amy like I know Amy, Amy does not love the video camera. She is beautiful and talented, as you can probably tell from listening to some of our episodes. She always has amazing insight. But Amy really did such an amazing job at this Facebook Live event. I'm terrified. I've never done a Facebook Live before, but we're trying to decide, what's the best way for us to engage with you guys? And we're just trying some new things. So if you are in your kitchen at home, or you're listening to this while you're getting ready and you want to put on your computer or your cell phone and go to Facebook, and you can watch Amy, get to know her a little bit better in visual form, or you can just keep listening, and we've got it here on the podcast. So I wanted to just give a huge acknowledgement for Amy. She does a lot of great sharing. She talks about a lot of personal experiences when she first went to Mexico, some of the synchronicities that she felt pointed to her that were signs of why she was where she was. Maybe it was time to leave. Maybe it was time to stay. She also talks a lot about her divorce in her early 20s, some really amazing raw sharing. So if you love to hear storytelling and you want to know more about my amazing co-host, then please listen on. And we would love your feedback on the Intentionist podcast. What do you think about synchronicities? Where is looking for signs too much? Can you go overboard? We want to hear what you guys have to say. So go to our Facebook page, comment under the Intentionist podcast, and we'd love to engage with you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my beautiful co-host, Amy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for our first mini workshop. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I had some technical difficulties, so we're figuring this out. This is our first Facebook Live video. So I'm Amy, one half of the Intentionists podcast, and I'm really excited to be here with you today, live from Valencia, Spain. And these are meant to be active experiences, so please feel free to comment throughout, grab a notebook and pen, or get your fingers ready to type. We are talking about the intersection between intuition and awareness, where all the synchronicity lies, and living from that place of wonder. So first, I would like you to close your eyes and take a deep breath. Inhale and let it out. One more deep breath. Inhale and exhale. That was mostly for my benefit because I'm nervous. What I want you to do is, on the count of 3, I'm going to have you turn your head to the right, and when you open your eyes, just notice the first thing that you see. So count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Open your eyes and tell me what you see. You can type it in if you want. Mine is a little playing card. So remember this object that you saw. We are going to come back to it in a little while. I'm going to begin by telling you the first of many stories, and we're going to call this one Mundane Messages in Mexico, because that's 3 M's and I like alliteration. So, July of last year, in 2017, I am in Sayulita, Mexico. My husband and I had just sold all of our stuff up in Washington State and decided we were going to move to Mexico and have this grand adventure. We'd already registered our son for this amazing school that actually had yoga and surfing classes and organic gardening as part of its curriculum. It was amazing. We were so excited. And we'd found a beautiful apartment that overlooked the Pacific Ocean. We were just so happy. And when we arrived to this apartment after spending a little bit of time in the south of Mexico, it was even more glorious than we had imagined. So we sent all the money off via PayPal to pay for this. We had gotten a year contract. And so I went outside on the deck of this apartment and I sat out doing my work on my computer. And I was just feeling like the luckiest human in the world. Like, wow, how did we get here? We did it. Here we are, and it's paradise. But when I went back inside, I saw that I was horribly sunburned. And it was weird because I had been sitting in the shade this entire time. And this, by the way, was the only sunburn that I got the entire year that I had been living in Mexico. And then night came in this apartment, and all of the jungly insects started flooding in because there were huge slats in the wall. And it was burning hot in this place because they had removed part of the roof on the deck, so it had just been baking in the sun all day long. It felt like it was 130 degrees. We didn't sleep a wink. I got up to take maybe 3 showers in the middle of the night because I just couldn't handle it. It was so hot. And so the next morning, we get up and we go look for something to eat. And on our way out the door, I look to my right and I see this little staircase that I hadn't noticed before. So I walk over and I peer over the side to see where it led. It was just a little staircase, maybe 7 stairs. And it led to nowhere. This was the little stairway to nowhere, the opposite of the stairway to heaven. It was so weird. I even walked down it just to make sure it was just nothing but a solid wall. So by this time, the signs are starting to stack up against our beautiful little paradise, and we didn't know what to do. We asked the owner if she'd install an AC, and she said she didn't believe in AC. So we decided, like, we have to find a new place, and we couldn't find a new one because there were no other places available. This town was crowded and expensive, and we couldn't find a thing. So we spoke to a friend living an hour away in Puerto Vallarta, and he said, why don't you come check this place out? So we decided to follow the signs away from our little stairway to nowhere apartment up to Puerto Vallarta. And by some miracle, the owner of this Sayulita house had not received our money because I sent it to the wrong email address. So I was able to get that back, and she'd forgotten to bring the contract, so we never actually signed the contract. So that was amazing. So anyway, we arrive in Puerto Vallarta and are greeted by this beautiful humpback whale sculpture, which is personally significant to me, due to another story, which I will share another time. But the whale, it was a good sign. And then we pull up to our Airbnb, and there's another giant whale mural on the wall right across the street. So whales, check. It's a point for Puerto Vallarta, and it's looking good so far. So we search for an apartment, and we get the first one we see. And when we went to move into this place a week later, I looked up at the number and I saw that the street number was 1210. And that's my birthday. 1210 is my birthday. So it was a lovely year. Many adventures transpired. But I tell this story as an illustration of synchronicity. Those wonderful little nods from the universe when your inner world and outer world match up in interesting ways to tell you, yes, head this way, or no, not that. Psychiatrist Carl Jung first came up with the term synchronicity to describe these meaningful coincidences through a letter dialogue with his physicist friend who shared his obsession with these points where the material world seems to intersect with the unseen realms. And these are points of enchantment where you can't help but wonder at what could possibly be behind the scenes. These little holes in the matrix, or what Jung called a rupture in time, are where the obvious bits of magic live. Now, my rational-ish brain, I'll throw a big ish on the end of that because I'm pretty right-brained, but my brain and my heart are constantly suspended in this balance between trying not to assign meaning where none exists and living enraptured by these mundane messages that surround me. And I think what makes synchronicity what it is that these little tidbits we see or hear resonate with some truth that is already deep inside of us. And this is where our intuition gets involved. These clues that hurl us into the space of wonder are hinting at something that we don't understand, but we feel in our bones. And Alan Lightman beautifully captures this human dilemma in a description from his book, The Accidental Universe, The World You Thought You Knew. And he says this: In our constant search for meaning in this baffling and temporary existence, trapped as we are within our 3 pounds of neurons, it's sometimes hard to tell what's real. We often invent what isn't there or ignore what is. We try to impose order, both in our minds and in our conceptions of external reality. We try to connect. We try to find truth. We dream and we hope. And underneath all these strivings, we are haunted by this suspicion that what we see and understand of the world is only a tiny piece of the whole. And what he says about our view as just this tiny sliver of the whole, and the suspicion that there's so much more going on here than we realize, I believe is the key to living at the point of wonder. And moments of synchronicity can really drive home this fact that life is far more strange and inexplicable than we usually realize. And this is a wonderful thing. The questions are what make it wonderful. Wonderful, meaning full of wonder. The fact that we don't understand everything is the very thing that makes a state of awe, which is the juice of life, even possible. It's okay that we don't have it all figured out. It's wonderful that we don't. Knowing that we know nothing is the beginning of everything, and all possibility lies right there in that spot. I'm reading a book right now by Robert Moss called Sidewalk Oracles, and he says in order to live and navigate from this point of wonder, there are 4 attitudes necessary. And one is that you have to be open to new experience. 2, you have to be available, willing to set aside plans and step out of your boxes. 3, you need to be thankful, grateful for these little secret handshakes and surprises that happen to you. And 4, said you have to honor these special moments by taking action. So I think that for me, this time in Mexico birthed so many of these little synchronicities, and that was just a few of them, because these conditions were there, and we kept acting on the little tidbits that we had plucked out. And being in motion in a new place automatically puts us in a state of humility about what we know and leaves us open to the winding pathways that emerge in the form of these signs. Now, these mini miracles can be really dramatic and life-changing, or they can be really simple. But the important thing about them is that we don't have to sit around waiting for them to appear. We don't have to wait a single minute for a sign to put us in that state of wonderment, to make us baffled in the most delightful way. All of these conditions are skills that we can practice. We are the ones who control our own receptivity to wonder. And that is where soap bubbles come into play. When I was a little girl, every time I would get in the bathtub, I would pour a little bit of shampoo under the faucet, try to get some bubbles worked up, and I try to blow them into the air because there was nothing more wonderful to me at that time than a floating bubble. With all its colors, its perfect round shape, and its little floating dance through the air. Bubbles were magic to me. And when I was a little older, I read a poem in my 7th grade English class. It was called Soap Bubble by Valerie Worth. And I'm just going to read it to you. It's really short. She says, "The soap bubble's great soft sphere bends out of shape on the air, leans, rounds again, rises, shivering, heavy, a planet revolving, hollow and clear, mapped with rainbows, streaming, curled, seeming, a world too splendid to snap, dribble, and disappear." So there are so many things that a soap bubble teaches us. The amazing beauty, the impermanence, the shifting, the playing, the dancing. And I think that when you start to notice things like soap bubbles, all of life becomes this miracle. My son brought home a book from the library when he was in 1st grade. It had been kind of a weird, depressing day for me. And we sat down on the couch and opened up this book. It was a book of poems. And the page we opened to was this poem, and I remembered it from all those years before. And last week I was standing at my sink, kind of angrily doing dishes and thinking about a strained conversation I just had, when all of a sudden this little bubble floated up right in front of my face, And it was the longest lasting bubble I've ever seen in my life. It would just hover up and down, side to side. As soon as it was about to hit something, it would veer miraculously, change directions, and not pop. I just watched this bubble mesmerized. I was captivated and I saw everything in that bubble. I remembered that life is wonderful. It doesn't matter what my regrets are from yesterday or what worries I might have about tomorrow, when in this moment in front of me is this little bubble with a million rainbows on it. When we look deeply at something mundane, like a soap bubble, it has a way of telling us what is true about things and what is true about ourselves. Read any collection of Buddhist poetry and you'll see that truly anything can be used as a gateway to this place. In Western esoteric traditions, they say, as above, so below, and you could extend that to as within, so without. We can gain understanding about the microcosm or the universe inside by studying the macrocosm or the world outside of us, and vice versa. And as we do this, we can choose our own symbols to dialogue with ourselves and with whatever mysteries lie beyond us. Life can be this beautiful interplay between the inside and the outside, because it is ultimately all connected at some point. And we can make our own meaning from these raw materials. Yesterday, as I was sitting preparing for this workshop, I looked out the window and I saw all these bubbles floating across the window in front of me down the street. Bubbles have become one of my self-appointed oracles and gateways to wonder. And this wonder and miracle of the moment does not discriminate between so-called positive and negative either. It can be found in every feeling and every experience, no matter what emotion happens to be flying across your consciousness at that time, or how much pleasure you're experiencing, or how much pain you're experiencing. It communicates the ineffable beauty and strangeness of our existence here. A bubble is a little universe with light and color and microscopic beams, and then it just pops. It's there, and then it's different. But what does it do while it's there, no matter how short its little life? It plays, it floats, it dances. It is what it is. It expresses its nature perfectly and uniquely, and it's not trying to be anything else. It's not trying to be a rock. It's not trying to be a human. Alan Watts reminds us the existence, the physical universe, is basically playful. There is no necessity for it whatsoever. It isn't going anywhere. That is to say, it doesn't have some destination that it ought to arrive at. He says the whole point of dancing is the dance. The whole point of music is the music, not the ending. And to view life as this journey with work to do towards a destination is to miss the point. He says it was a musical thing, and you were just supposed to sing or dance while the music was being played. One of my friends died last year of cancer, and really soon after I had a very vivid dream about her. In the dream, we were sitting together at this coffee shop and talking, and I was really worried because I didn't know if she knew she had died. I was trying to figure out, because I didn't want to be the one to burst her bubble. I didn't want to break it to her that she was dead, and everyone was really upset about it. So I was really concerned, really worried, trying to figure this out for a while. And then she looks at me with the most sparkling, playful smile, and she says to me, "Amy, you have no idea how not a big deal life is, or death is." She was laughing and laughing, and she said, "There is no way I can explain to you how unconcerned you should be, how this is not serious business, that we're here to play." That's what she said to me. We put so much pressure on ourselves, this heavy, unnecessary pressure, when we could actually be playing with life. We could actually be living and noticing we're living. A wonderful thing that my husband started telling our son when he wakes up in the morning is, "Yes, you made it! You're here! You woke up again! Congratulations!" Because one day we're not going to wake up here. This is where we are now. This is what's around us. So why not really notice it, really celebrate it? It is just my natural tendency to become enraptured by mundane things, and I understand that this doesn't come naturally for many people, but I 100% believe that it is a skill that can be developed in practice, this noticing of the wonder in the present moment. And I think this because there has been times in my life when I lost my sense of wonder, or when I didn't recognize what was around me because I was so preoccupied with problems. And for me, what these times all had in common is that they were times when I didn't follow the signs that echoed the wisdom that was buried deep inside myself. Times when I smothered my own truth. Letting your life be led by synchronicity is really about noticing what in your essence rings true and is echoed in your surroundings. The information is everywhere, in a sunburn, even in a bubble. It's just a matter of clearing the connection to your authentic voice. So the morning of my wedding, my first wedding, I threw up. And I don't throw up. I'm not a throwing up person. My body was trying to speak to me. And a week before, one of my closest friends and mentors said, "You know, Amy, you don't have to do this. I know you've already planned and paid for everything, but everyone would get over it." I hadn't said a word to her or anyone, but she could see in my eyes where I was conflicted and lying to myself. The truth was that I wasn't certain that I wanted to do this, and I saw certain red flags that I immediately explained away. And something as big as a marriage, you should at least begin certain. There's plenty of time along the way to undo that, but it should at least be there in the beginning. I felt pressured. And the night before I was to be married, I was walking down my parents' street with my fiance. I spotted in the gutter a perfectly formed dragonfly. It was beautiful. It was teal. And I thought, wow, what a magical omen of good fortune for us. So I walk over closer to get a closer look, and it was dead. This was a dead dragonfly. I was only 20 years old. I didn't know who I was or what I wanted. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to set boundaries at this time. All I really knew how to do was to let my resentment and shame and sadness build with each situation that confirmed over and over to me that this relationship was not good or right for me. And 3 years into this marriage, I was completely unrecognizable to myself. But by now I had a 1-year-old son, and at this time I was a very devout member of a religion where you didn't just leave the person you promised to be married to forever. And I did love him in this limited, crippled way that was possible for me at that time. But I was miserable. I was, like a maniac, staying up late after I put my son to bed to do really ornate craft projects, and then calling my friends the next day so that they could come look at them and give me some praise for them, because I was so craving validation and appreciation from another human being. I didn't know how to cultivate praise for myself at that time. I didn't know how to give myself the love that I was hungry for. And how could I? I blamed myself completely for every unkind word or manipulative silence that happened, because I was the one who had picked this. I was the one who had invented an intricate story in my mind about how a dead dragonfly is actually an amazing omen of love and good fortune. Therefore, I deserved everything that happened to me. I'd lost all my self-confidence, all my belief that life was magic during this time. I would watch my sleeping son just crying in horror that he was going to grow up seeing this as a model for a loving relationship, that this was going to be his mother, this shell of a person that I didn't recognize. Leaving and staying both seemed impossible. And I found myself weeping on the floor one day in just utter despair, just feeling suffocated by this pain, like someone had reached in, grabbed all my organs, and they were just squeezing and twisting them. I felt like there was like a virus in my brain that was eating away at my sanity. I was praying and begging for a solution, begging to be told what to do. I didn't want the responsibility of making any decisions ever, because we saw how good that worked last time I tried to make an adult decision, I thought. I felt despair at the lose-lose situation before me, and I felt despair that there was no guidance coming toward me. I couldn't hear anything. Nothing. So I gave up straining and reaching to detect something outside of myself. And that's when I heard it. This little tiny, tiny voice deep in my heart that said, Amy, you have a heart and you have a brain. Use them. You are here to use them. You're the only one who can act on their behalf. So I packed up my son, and kind of with my tail between my legs, I called up my mom and asked if she could buy me a flight back to California, where I'm from. I had no money, no work experience, and a little baby to raise. But I had made one of my first authentic decisions. It didn't matter what others said or what my belief system taught or how uncomfortable I was going to be for a time. I had acted on behalf of my true self. And in so doing, something started happening. I started seeing color again. I slowly started to uncover my sense of wonder that had been buried under all that pain and all that confusion. I retrained myself to remember that everything is magic. And I did that by rediscovering the simple little objects that surrounded me. I had cleared the space to do this. I'd made it a point to notice. Whereas before, I was too busy noticing my dilemma. I was too busy just surviving. So for you all, tomorrow morning, as soon as you open your eyes, I want you to find one object or person or shape, just something to really notice and kind of fall in love with. Take a moment to study it and wonder about it. And just be with that thing in that moment and think about all the amazing things that had to occur in order for you to be seeing this. And realize that there will be a day when you can't notice that thing anymore. Either you've moved away, or it's moved locations, or you're just dead. So do this for the next 7 days. And if you want to take it a step further, you can write a sentence or two in your journal or notebook, or even post on social media, this little wonder log, what you notice and what you noticed about this object. So for example, take the thing that you saw in the exercise at the beginning of this workshop. Mine was this card. So if I was doing this exercise and this was the first thing I saw upon waking up, I would look at it, I would think, wow, it's so flat and smooth and shiny, and there's this design that was printed, and I would notice all the colors, and I would realize that, wow, someone designed this, some human designed this, and some tree grew that someone cut down and created paper for it. Someone invented a machine that can print things, and someone gave birth to that person who invented all this stuff, and wow, all of the materials and the inventors and the people that brought this card to my view all grew out of this blue planet that we're standing on, that's spinning through space. And all the materials that ended up here are the result of stars exploding millions of years ago. How crazy is that? How baffling and spectacular are these little things, this little card? So the exercises like this are training your brain to notice how full and miraculous and impermanent each moment is. And like anything else, it just requires some practice to rewire and orient your attention toward the wonder that surrounds you. When you see that each moment is so brimming with wonder and questions and magic and gratitude, we don't have time or space to get swallowed by our fears and anxieties. we don't have the ability to hold on to our sadness when it arises, not with these little anchors all around us. Noticing sadness come and go as if it's just a little card is an anchor in and of itself. Isn't it strange that everything is changing all the time? It's wonderful. I call these little items Inglorious oracles because they're usually unnoticed and they're commonplace. And when you train yourself to notice and study something commonplace that is not usually celebrated, it turns your little wonder detection meter way up, and it allows you to be present with the contents of your existence here. If we can learn to celebrate the obscure common things that make up the majority of minutes in our lives, we create an incredibly rich, textured experience for ourselves. If we can make a habit of becoming enraptured with something as commonplace as a card or a cup or a curtain, if we can find the glory in what seems inglorious, or fall in love with what seems unlovable, make meaning from what seems meaningless, when we truly notice life, the strange and miraculous thing that starts happening is that life seems to notice us back. So thanks again so much everyone who's joined me today. If you try this exercise, and I hope you will, please reach out and let us know how it went. I'll stick a little thread in our Intentionist circle where we can kind of keep the dialogue going about this. I would love to hear how this goes for you. And lots of love to you all, and of course, no matter where you are or what you're creating, remember to just breathe and begin. Hope you all have a beautiful day.
Before we part, we'd like to say thanks for listening, and we hope you'll connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We would love to hear from you and appreciate all feedback, shares, and likes.
To learn more and subscribe to our newsletter, visit Intentionists.com. And no matter where you are or what you're creating, we send you love and invite you to breathe and begin.
See you next week.